I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff. Today we're going to open up this wall and make a walk-in closet. Thanks to Salesforce for sponsoring a portion of this video. If you've been around the channel for a while, you may remember that a couple of years ago in my boys' room we broke into the attic space to build them a closet slash playroom. Well, it gets used a lot as a playroom, but not so much as a closet because honestly this is just not a great space for it. So we've got another space in the same room where we can break through the wall and make a proper walk-in closet. So that's what we're going to do. You may also recognize the climbing wall that we built a long time ago, and the closet that we're going to put in is actually in this area right behind the climbing wall. But the section that I'm on right now has a raised floor based on the room below this. On the other side of this wall, the floor is not raised. So one of our big challenges is going to be to knock through this wall, build the floor up to meet this surface, and then build the closet on top of that. And inside the attic space, I've looked around, kind of roughly figured it out, but until we actually get this open, I don't exactly know all the measurements for all the different parts. Essentially, we're gonna do about a 4-foot door right here in the middle, and the closet itself is gonna be about 8 feet wide. Now that means that we need to move this outlet over, and we need to make a place for 2 bifold doors or some sort of a door to go in this space to cover it up. So first, let's mark out the opening, then we'll knock out the wall. Mark this thing out to have a 36-inch wide opening just based on kind of a location. Then it turned out that the stud that I was trying to go around is actually 2 inches from the outside of what's going to be the opening. So we're going to move the whole thing over 2 inches because the placement of it on this wall doesn't really have to be specific. I also went ahead and took out all of the insulation on the back side of this wall, so that's already been removed. This is where we're at. It was easy enough to break through the wall, but the problem, like I mentioned before, is that this floor is lower by almost 12 inches. So we got to build a frame all the way across this thing up to meet this level. Then, actually, we have to take this out, come to think of it, because the floor is going to run through here. So we've got to build up the floor here, and then we're going to have to take out this framing so that we can actually extend this wood floor all the way into the closet. So basically what we're doing in here is we're going to be taking out these studs, but we have to put up a new stud for where the door frame is going to be, and we have to put in a header across the top of this. Now the roof is right there, so there's not like an entire another story of the house above this or anything, but I do want to put in a 2x6 header across this opening just to reinforce it, just to be safe. You may see that it's kind of weird that I'm putting another stud right next to this existing one, but basically this new one I'm putting in is going to be the one that goes all the way up. This one that's already there, I'm going to cut off to set the header right on top of. That was the ceiling. Turns out the metal blades work better on nails than the wood blades. This is going to be really, really awkward to do, but basically what I'm going to do is build the entire floor of the closet, which is 8 feet long, 28 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and make this box and then fill in the pieces for blocking in between these two to keep them separated. And then as a whole, I'm going to take this entire thing through that opening, kind of wiggle it around and lay it down. It's going to be easier than doing it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this thing together, and then I'll have to muscle it into place. I ended up having to get a thinner piece of plywood to use as the subfloor on the inside here, and that's okay. It's not ideal, but it is just a closet. It's not going to get a lot of foot traffic, and so it's not going to make a huge difference, and it will make the transition between these two rooms a little bit nicer. Now next up, I need to actually remove this plug. There's going to be a big sliding door that's going to cover that up, so I'm going to take this box out of the wall and then reroute the wire around the outside of the closet and then put it in the other wall, while also adding a switch and a light up in the top. This is really simple wiring, and you would typically do this after you've got all of the framing in place, but I'm going to be doing this in the floor that I just built. So it's easier to get to now before I put up the walls. I got the subfloor put down, so that's good to go, and I actually did have to look up whether it was okay to put the subfloor down before you put walls on. Turns out in most cases that's absolutely normal and common to do. There are a few situations where you shouldn't do that, so make sure you check out your specific situation, but here that's okay, which means now we can start building walls. The doorway to the closet is right here. There are 2 fixed walls behind the camera, and so really all I have to worry about is this back wall, which is going to be in 2 sections, and the side wall. Now the side wall is the only one that really has to follow the shape of the roof, so I'm going to have to work on that a little bit, but really all of these are basic stick framed walls, so I'm going to show you one of them and then just kind of do the rest. Then we're going to talk about the shelves that'll go in the space. I use this piece of wood right here to actually get the same angle of the rafters in there. And then now that I've got this placed where it's going to be on the wall, I can use that line that I drew and try to estimate where that line, where the rafters will cross all of these pieces. So I can make a mark, and then I'll have to measure it to check. But this gives me a rough height of each one of these studs to cut. I I got this wall up, and then I went ahead and did the rest of the framing to cover this back wall. It was really basic. I just had to account for the angle of the roof here. So at this point, I do have this giant opening here, so we're gonna build in some boxes for some shelves, but we're gonna do that later. First up, we actually need to insulate these sections. And you'll notice there's a whole bunch of insulation back there, and you may be wondering, why aren't you using that? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we need a vapor barrier between this space and that space, and that insulation does not have that vapor barrier on it, or the paper on the front. So we got some new stuff that we're gonna use to fill in between these studs. And then all that old insulation, I'm actually just gonna lay it out in the attic. It's gonna add extra insulation to the spaces below. This portion of the video is sponsored by Salesforce. Now, Salesforce Essentials is a CRM, or a customer relationship management database. This is the piece of software that you would use to connect all of your customer information from your website, from your social channels, from your email list, and much more. As you're building your small business, you want to make sure that you can get in touch with your customers no matter where they come from. You want to be able to offer them information about your services and answer their questions. Using Salesforce Essentials, you can create lead capture forms on your website to generate new business and develop relationships with your customers. You can also create a help center page on your website so that they can come get answers to their questions about your business. Salesforce Essentials will help you send out a message to all of your customers or a specific group in case you want to send out maybe a discount code to certain people. You can totally do that. If you want to find out more about Salesforce Essentials, hit the link down in the description, and big thanks to Salesforce for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now that we've got the insulation in between these studs, we also need to put another piece back here to create an air seal. And this is going to be a piece of rigid foam, just kind of styrofoam. And we're going to put this right up against it and then drive in some nails just to hold it in place. The insulation is all complete, and I'm really hot and tired, but I have to put drywall on top of that. Instead of making you watch the drywall, I'm gonna send you over to Josh because he's gonna be building 2 shelving units to fit in these openings. Really simple plywood shelves with some adjustable spaces on the bottom, so I'll let him take that from here.
While Bob is upstairs happily doing plywood, I get to make the 2 shelving units. So I made a 2D model and a cutlass. I'm gonna break down that plywood over there, make the 2 units, and put them in the openings. This is basic cabinet building like many of the projects we've made before. I'm going to use a pocket hole jig, but this time I'm going to put the pockets on the outsides because it's going to be cased in the drywall, so you won't see any of them on the inside. Whee!
Perfect.
Now I'm going to make some provisions for 2 floating shelves. Now Bob only wanted the 2 floating shelves on the lower half of the box, so I'm not going to put these holes all the way up the side to make it look really tacky, so I'm only going to put it in the area where those 2 shelves can move. Normally for casework like this, you'd see us apply edge banding to all these exposed edges, but we're not going to do that because it's going to go into the opening and all these are going to get covered up with trim.
We've jumped ahead just a little bit. I've got the walls sanded and I also have some primer on them, so they are ready for paint. We also got these installed and you saw me put some insulation on the back of them. Now there's still a little bit of work to do on these. I need to go back and fill these gaps on the backside with some of the expanding foam insulation like you would get in a can. That's just gonna help seal that up so we don't let any air from the attic into this space. But next up, we're actually gonna move to the floor. The flooring that we put in this room, we have just enough of it left over to fill in this closet area. So I'm gonna start laying these pieces down. This particular floor is a hardwood floor, but it's a snap together one, so you don't have to nail it down. We just have to put underlayment down and then we'll lay the pieces and cut them to fit. I've used this several times. You've seen me use this in a couple of videos, so I'm not gonna go into it in detail. And the closet is complete, but there's actually something I did that I didn't show you. Check this out. In between these two studs, I built a really simple box with some shelves in it. This is all 1x material, made into a box and just pushed into place. And this is an incredibly shallow shelf, but it's just an extra little space that was otherwise going to be unused that they can fill up with stuff that they want to show off. And there's also a bunch of other space in here that's not used yet, but we will definitely take advantage of eventually, including this right here. This would be perfect for making a hat hanger, so you could hang up a whole bunch of hats. And on top of both of these racks, I left space to add a shelf in the future so we can take advantage of that area as well. I'm really excited to have this project finished for a few different reasons. First off, the boys have much better storage for all their stuff in their room. That's awesome. But more importantly, we took advantage of some unused square footage in our attic and turned it into a new room. You may want to check your attic space because you've probably got an area like this that you can take advantage of. You may also realize that there's no door on this closet yet, and just like the other closet, we're actually going to be working on that in a future video, so be sure to keep your eyes out for that. We've got a bunch of other types of projects that you may want to check out, and if you're not subscribed, be sure to do that as well. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Pulled it in and stabbed me.
And I'll let him show you how he's gonna do that.
This is how I did it.
I'm gonna make 2 of those units, put them in the openings, and then forget how to end that sentence.